Health Alert is brought to you by OU Physicians in Tulsa. Hello, welcome to Health Alert. I'm Pam Butler. Today we're going to talk about schools and gangs, and this is the sort of the next to the last installment in our series. And joining me for this again is Marvin Blades. You're with Tulsa Public Schools Campus Police and a former Tulsa Police Department officer of 31 years.
That's correct.
Welcome back again.
Thank you.
Now, we have been doing a series on gangs, and I wanted to focus on this particular show looking at schools in particular and gangs. And we will review some of the things we talked about before for people that did not see that. Before we sort of get into our clothing and what we need to know and dress codes and look for, tell me a little bit about participation in gangs. As the general consumer or viewer, sometimes we think that gangs are primarily in the African American community, or if they're not primarily there, that's the largest place you will find them. Clarify that.
Well, gangs actually cross over every ethnicity, every race, every gender that we have. In our schools, we see Hispanic gangs, we see African American gangs, we see all Caucasian gangs, and we see a combination of both, or all three. We used to see a lot of Oriental gangs. We don't see as many now. I don't know if it's because the Oriental population is falling or whatever, but about 20 years ago, we used to see quite a few Oriental gangs. We don't see as many now. But the older you get, you start seeing gangs coalesce into just one ethnic group. Prime example is motorcycle gangs.
Okay.
Motorcycle gangs are almost criminal motorcycle gangs, almost exclusively white. Hate groups, almost exclusively white. A lot of our older Hispanic gangs are going to be exclusively Hispanic, and I'm talking about like the MS-13s, Sereno 13s, a lot of the older Hispanic gangs. When I say older, I'm talking about guys as old as 70 years old in gangs coming out of penitentiaries.
Whoa. And so you say that the older they get, the more that they sort of stay within that same ethnic group?
That's true.
Okay.
Like the Mexican Mafia, a lot of people think that the Mexican Mafia is a street gang. It's not. That's actually a prison gang. A lot of our Hispanic street gangs are operated from inside the penitentiaries. A lot of the orders that these gangs get actually come from the penitentiary, particularly when it comes to drug sales, robberies, things that finance the activities of the gang. A lot of orders come from the penitentiary.
Now, people would kind of wonder how in the world could that happen, because if they're in the penitentiary, there's a tighter control on communication, on letters that go out or come in. They're being read, right, by officials or guards, so that how are they able to do that? I would think the phone calls that they make are also being monitored.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of, about 2 weeks ago in Connors, when our penitentiaries around here, they confiscated 20 cell phones from inside the penitentiary. Some way these items were getting inside the pen. And these guys have a list of numbers, list of people they communicate with on a regular basis. So the mail is not the only form of communication they have with the outside.
And they're just not sort of relegated to the payphone or the landline type of phone. Somehow they're getting cell phones smuggled in.
Yeah, they're getting cell phone. They're even getting a little $20 phone you can buy.
Right.
Those are getting inside the pen. They use them. They dispose them, or they use them, or give them to a visitor who take them back out of the penitentiary. You know, how they get in, I have no idea, but I'm sure people that work in the penitentiary can probably, better allude to that than I can.
Okay. Well, then when we think about that and that the gangs are widespread across various races and ethnicities, that's a word and a half there. Let me ask about the other thing that we tend to think about, that most members of a gang tend to come from lower socioeconomic type of families, or families where there are no parents in terms of a father figure is absent, or maybe there is no mother figure, or they're being raised by the grandmom or granddad, or something like that, or aunt and uncle. Is that what is typically seen?
We got to be careful about even using the word typical. We're looking at a wide range of members coming from homes that where there is a mother and father. And when I say mother and father, I'm talking about professionals.
Okay.
Where there is just a single parent. So when we start talking about who is and who's not a gangman, we need to be careful. That's why looking at the clothing, looking at the actions, looking at the activity they participate in is so more important than just looking at poverty level or what caste system they come from.
Okay, now what draws kids to gangs? Sometimes we think it's because they don't get enough love and attention in the home environment. Is that really the greatest reason?
I think that's a major reason. That's a major reason. I think, particularly when we start, the majority of the ones that we deal with are coming right around that early adolescent age.
Okay.
And they're hitting that age where they're looking for affirmation, they're looking for belonging, and they're looking for somebody who actually listens to them. If they have a home where that does not take place, they're going to find it outside the home. So we do see a lot of that.
Okay, you know, and the previous show that we did where we had two former gang members with us, Vincent and Rashawn, they talked about sometimes parents, especially if parents have more economic ability, they may provide the video games and the iPods and all this type of thing, but they're not spending time with their children.
That is so correct.
And so that is what the focus is that how much time are we spending, how much are we doing with them, are we going to the basketball court and playing with them, are we there with them with the video games? So they really are having that direct contact and feedback from us as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of parents feel that if I'm financial with my child, then I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that if I can provide a car for them when they hit 16 or a major video game when it comes out, then I'm doing what a parent's supposed to do. But they forget about the nurturing part. And I think the biggest part, if you actually have a chance to sit down and talk to some of these guys, I think the biggest part missing from their lives was there was a lack of nurturing coming from the adult that was in the home. So they found it elsewhere.
Okay. Now, when we think about gangs, too, especially here within Oklahoma, is there any one area in Oklahoma, whether it's Tulsa, Oklahoma City, where people should sort of think there's more gang activity than another place, or does it tend to be kind of spread out?
Well, if we're looking at urban street gangs, we're looking at probably Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Lawton, and probably Muskogee.
Okay.
When we start talking about these hate groups, the Klan, skinheads, neo-Nazi groups, we're talking about rural areas. And the majority of those are going to be Caucasian. Now, the Hispanic gangs, we'll find them throughout. There are areas where there's a lot of agriculture, because a lot of our Hispanics work in the summer and the spring, working agricultural jobs.
Okay.
So we'll see a lot of their kids or their siblings that are involved in gang activity in some of the rural areas, because that's where the parents are.
Okay. Now, when we think about this, and I am going to go to a break. I'm going to do good on my time today. You've been here several times, so you know about me and time. But when we think about that, and in terms of gang location and gang activity and things such as that, we shouldn't continue to, based on what you're saying, try to localize, well, because I'm in this part of the city, more people, more youth are going to be gang-oriented compared to another part of the city.
We have to be careful, but at the same time being careful, you got to understand with law enforcement, one of the major tools that law enforcement use is what we call field interview reports.
Okay.
In a field interview report, you take information where this person lives at, who they hang with, who they associate with, what kind of car they drive, and a lot of times you're going to see clusters.
Okay.
You'll see one group living in one area and another group living in another area. So when it comes to urban areas, that is not unusual to find that type of activity.
Okay, okay. So we're going to take a really quick break and come back and focus on some of the clothing items that can help us sort of understand if there's gang person or activity happening. Okay? Please stay with us. We'll be right back.